What's going on, everyone? It is Greg here. Hope you like my new shirt. Welcome to Project Unbroken. So today I got a new question in for me specifically, and this person knew that I've been an addict. Obviously, I've been telling the world I used to be a heroin addict and deal with these drugs. Then also my fiance was, I guess you could say, an alcoholic. Had issues with alcohol, however you want to put it, where she hasn't had alcohol now in over 9 months. So they asked me, was it harder being the addict or was it harder being the loved one of the addict? Now, there's certain situations where each are, more difficult in themselves, but in the end, for me, I think that being the loved one of an addict is tougher. And there's a situation I didn't go through, which is having a child in addiction, which I can imagine is even worse than having, a husband or a wife or, boyfriend, girlfriend, fiance, whatever the case is, or another loved one that's in an addiction. You're kind of, battling with them, being the person that's sober. Obviously, nothing's above your child, so I can imagine that would be even harder than what I went through. So, but even with that said, just with her going through it, I would still say that being the loved one is tougher. The reason is, to an extent, you don't have control of what they decide, right? Now, you do have control of making their life more difficult. You definitely, Matt and I have talked about this in other videos, where you don't want to make things easy for the addict. The easier you make things for an addict, the more that they're going to associate easy with addiction, so the more likely they are to not stop using, right? So if you keep, providing them money and providing them endless love and endless support, whatever the case is, why are they going to quit? They're not going to, right? So to an extent, you do have control of their addiction, where you can do things that would make it tougher on them and, make it more likely for them to quit. But at the same time, you don't have control over their final decision, right? You don't have control over what they decide to do. It's totally up to them. And for me, that sucks. Being in that situation sucks when it's really, in the end, you don't have the say, they have the say. When you're the addict, you have to go through things more, obviously, head on, and you experience them firsthand, and maybe you're the one that has to go through the pain. Even when you're a loved one, you go through pain with them, but I'm talking about like the actual withdrawal symptoms, or just the feeling depressed in the initial stages and all that. As an addict, you gotta firsthand go through that. You still go through it as a loved one, but when you're the addict, I think it's even worse because it's constantly there. Whereas you're when you're the loved one, you may get little breaks here and there. So in that way, being the addict sucks more. But when you're the addict, you're the one that has control. In the end, you're the one that decides that I want to change my life and I'm going to turn things around. I'm going to start making this. Yeah, it sucks to go through those changes, but you are still the one that's in control. When it's a loved one that has, the problem, in the end, again, it's their decision, and you're just kind of, you're not, you can influence their decision, but in the end, you're not the one that makes the end decision. They are. So it's a tough spot to be in, and I can just feel for the parents out there that have a child in addiction that where the child just won't stop using. And we've done videos on what we would do specifically in that case, which you may want to check out. But to answer that question, honestly, I think it's harder to be the loved one of the addict, because in the end, you just aren't the one that has the say. The addict is, and it can be tough because, like I said, you do go through the addiction with the addict. You do go through the pain. You may not experience it firsthand, the same things they're experiencing, but it's constant worrying. It's constant wondering where they are, what they're doing, what they're lying about. Are they okay? Why aren't they answering their phone? So it sucks. Being a loved one of an addict really sucks. And again, if it's your kid and it's like that, there's no love greater than a child, so I can't even imagine being in that situation. It's bad enough where it's, fiance, husband, wife, something like that. So, yeah, that's my thoughts on it. I honestly think it's harder to be the loved one. I feel for all the people out there that have a loved one that is an addict, but remember, there is definitely things you can do to help get that person out of their addiction. Like I talked about in this video, making things more difficult on them is going to make them see their addiction as more difficult, okay? And the more you enable them, the more they're going to stay in their addiction. So hopefully this helps answer your question on is it harder to be the addict or the loved one of the addict. Honestly, both suck. I don't want to really be either, but if I had to pick, I would rather be the addict and then have to get out of it myself, because at least I have the choice, and it's up to me to come out of the addiction. Whereas if it's a loved one, it's totally up to them. Luckily my fiance is awesome. She's strong. She wanted to get out of her addiction. She didn't want to drink anymore, so she got out of it. So it worked out. But I can't imagine if she took the other road and she didn't want to. It would have sucked. That would have been a tough pill to swallow, and would have been a tough situation to deal with. So hopefully that answers your question on is it harder to be the addict or the loved one of the addict. If you have any more questions like this, let me know, and I'll see you on the next video. Make sure you subscribe. See y'all soon.